Hello students, welcome to this e-learning. In this video, we will be discussing chapter 1, 2 and 3 of the long reading text that is Swami and Friends by R.K. Narayan. Chapter 1, Monday Morning. A schoolboy named Swami wakes up on Monday morning reluctant to get out of bed. He dreads facing his school teacher and the mission school's headmaster, especially since he has left all of his homework to do in the 2 hours before the school starts. He settles into his desk in a corner of his father's dressing room and begins to work. Swami sits in his classroom, bored throughout the first few hours of school. He can only stand to be at school at all because he enjoys watching the toddlers in the nearby infant standards classroom. His teacher, Vedanayagam, appears very ugly to him and pinches his hand when he finds that Swami's math homework is incorrect. Swami enjoys his class more. Swami enjoys the next class more because it is a history class taught by a kind man named D. Pillai, who tells stories of great battles in history rather than following any canon of education. The final class of the morning is scripture class taught by Mr. Ebenezer, a religious fanatic. Swami and his friends or his classmates sometimes enjoy the colorful Bible stories that they learn, despite the fact that Mr. Ebenezer insults the belief of the non-Christian students. Mr. Ebenezer launches into a rant about the failings of the Hindu god Krishna in comparison to Jesus, which causes Swami to stand up and argue against his teacher, Mr. Ebenezer. Mr. Ebenezer twists Swami's ear as punishment. Swami arrives at school the following day feeling guilty about a letter that he carries in his pocket. He thinks that he is an idiot for telling his father about the trouble with Mr. Ebenezer. Swami delivers the letter to the mission school headmaster, at which point the reader learns that Swami's father has complained to the headmaster about discrimination against non-Christian students. The letter states that the school should be more tolerant of students of other religions and requests that the headmaster inform Swami's father if Hindu boys are not welcome at the school so that he can send Swami to school elsewhere. When Swami exits the mission school headmaster's room, his classmates crowd around to find out what happened. However, Swami refuses to tell anyone but his 4 best friends, who are introduced one by one. The first friend is Somu, the class monitor, who is a mediocre student but relaxed and well liked by everyone, including the teachers. The next friend is Mani, described as the mighty good for nothing. Mani is powerful. He is a powerful bully who never does his homework but is never punished. Swami is especially proud to be Mani's friend. The third friend is Shankar, known as the smartest boy in the class and whom Swami greatly admires. Swami's final close friend is Samuel, who is known as the P because he is a small and unremarkable. The P has no outstanding virtue but gets along well with Swami because they have similar sense of humor. Okay, so we have already done the character sketch in the previous video. Kindly refer to those videos for in-depth and detailed study of the characters. Now Swami tells his friends about his father's letter, and all four of them approved of his telling his father about Ebenezer's behavior, although Mani wishes he could have attacked the teacher himself. The P feels embarrassed because he himself is a Christian and agrees with Ebenezer, but he does not say anything to his friends. The day's scripture class proceeds normally at first, with Ebenezer vigorously denouncing Hinduism, but then the mission school headmaster enters the class and criticizes Ebenezer's teaching, embarrassing the teacher in front of the students. At the end of the day, Swami is called to see the mission school headmaster, who has Ebenezer waiting in his office. Swami is uncomfortable talking with Ebenezer present and wishes to leave, but the headmaster keeps him in the office long enough to tell him that in the future Swami should trust the headmaster and come to him with complaints instead of telling his father. The headmaster gives Swami a letter to give his father, and Swami runs home relieved. Moving on to the second chapter, it is titled as Rajam and Mani. Swami and his friend Mani was sitting on the banks of the river Sarayu, a pleasant area near the center of their town, Malguri. Mani tells Swami that he wants to throw Rajam, a new student at their school, into the river. Swami dresses well, speaks good English, gets good grades, and has impressed the class enough to be a rival to the powerful Mani. Swami points out that Rajam's father is the police superintendent, but Mani says that he doesn't care and hints that he might beat up Swami if Swami gets too friendly with Rajam. Swami protests that he hates Rajam, convincing Mani that Swami is on Mani's side. As the conflict between Mani and Rajam grows in the following days, Swami acts as their go-between, passing notes full of insults and challenges from one to the other. During classes, Swami is forced to stand on a bench as a punishment for getting a question wrong. At the end of the day, Swami, Mani and Rajam gather, and Mani and Rajam challenges each other to a fight at the river the following evening. Mani asks Rajam to promise not to tell Rajam's father about the fight, and Rajam agrees. The next evening, Mani arrives at the river carrying a club, ready to fight Rajam, and Rajam himself arrives with an air gun. The two talks awkwardly for a few minutes, and then Rajam asks Mani what he has done to offend him. Mani answers that he had heard Rajam had called him a snake behind his back, but Rajam denies doing so and says that he wouldn't mind being friends with Mani. Mani agrees that he would also be glad to be friends, and the two drops their weapon, that is the club and the air gun. Swami, having secretly admired Rajam, is delighted at the turn of events, and the new friends sit by the river eating cookies that Rajam brought to share. This is all for chapter 2. Moving on to the next chapter, chapter 3, that is Swami's grandmother. Swami's grandmother is introduced to us in this chapter, who lives with him in a passageway of his parents' house and whom he calls Granny. Swami spends time with his grandmother after eating dinner, feeling warm and safe with her. He tells his grandmother about his new friend Rajam and how wonderful he is, and he expresses particularly excitement about Rajam's father, that he is a police superintendent. Swami goes on to list all of Rajam's good qualities, often cutting his grandmother off rudely when he tries to speak, or when she tries to speak. She tells him about his brilliant grandfather, but Swami ignores her and continue talking about Rajam. Swami becomes suspicious that his grandmother is not listening to him and that she does not believe how wonderful Rajam is, but she emphasizes her approval of Rajam, and Swami is comforted. She begins to tell him a story that Rajam reminded her of, but Swami falls asleep halfway through her telling. Swami sits at home, studying at his father's order, trying to understand the meaning of a poem. His mother brings him snacks, and then finally his father leaves for work at the court. As soon as his father is gone, Swami runs out of the house to visit his friends, ignoring Granny when she calls to him. He goes first to Mani's house and then together they go to Rajam's house. Although they are nervous at first, the policeman outside Rajam's house is polite to them and takes them inside. Swami and Mani are impressed by Rajam's house, which is large and tidy. Rajam comes to meet them and show off his amazing collection of toys. Then Rajam orders his cook to bring in a plate of snacks. Rajam bullies the cook in order to impress his new friends, but the cook talks back to Rajam, at which point Rajam brings the snacks in himself while telling his friends that he left the cook unconscious in the kitchen. This is all for this video. Do continue watching the next videos for the complete understanding of the text. Thank you.